When the war started in 41, we had just opened up our shop, and I heard the newscast. Franklin Roosevelt said Pearl Harbor was being bombed, and I couldn't believe that Pearl Harbor was being bombed. My goodness, what are we going to do now? Then they gave us orders that we couldn't travel over 3 miles from our residence. So that lasted for about a month or 2 months, and then we had orders we were going to have to move to relocation centers, prison camps, barbed wire fence, guard towers on us each corner, and the machine guns were pointing in, not out.
Seeking to avoid the mandatory internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, George Sakato's family relocated from California to Arizona. There, the 21-year-old tried to join the Army Air Corps, but found that the Army's recruiters were not so accommodating.
I volunteered for the Air Force, and I was called up and went to March of 44, and I got on the train and ended up in Camp Landing, Florida. And I'm looking for the planes, and they're just, where's the planes? I said, oh, I'm sorry, you're in the infantry.
Sakato was assigned to the segregated 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which was comprised primarily of second-generation Japanese Americans and would become the most decorated American unit in the war. After landing in France in 1944 and fighting successfully northward for months, the unit was ordered to take a hill outside the town of Bifontaine, near the German border.
They could see for miles the troop movement a mile away. So they had control of that valley, and they wanted to take that hill. But every time we got in the open area, well, they could see us, the machine gun was fired up, and so we couldn't cross that railroad tracks. So that night we got on trucks. They trucked us around a couple of the hills, and we came back. And this time we crossed enemy lines, and we marched all night, and we're now on the back of this ridge. And then at dawn we started our attack. So we caught the Germans off guard. They didn't know that we were in back of them now. I took 3 machine guns out of that area, and we chased them off the hill, chased them out of the foxholes, and they scattered the other way. And then in the meantime, I was taking prisoners back, and now they're going to counterattack. The artillery started coming in. So we had to jump in the Germans' foxholes this time. Artillery shells was coming in, and I jumped in one hole, and I had a Thompson submachine gun that I found from the tank that blew out. I had all kinds of firepower. Then the counterattack really started coming. When the German attack started coming and charging up, I fired 60 rounds of ammunition. I was running out. Then they stopped charging. So there was a lull, and they were going to regroup. So I started filling my clips back up with ammunition. I was leaning back, and I was looking up the hill, and I seen a group of German soldiers going up the hill with machine guns. So I says, "What's for the machine gun up there?" So then my buddy turns around and he stands up for some reason, I don't know why, and he says, "Where?" And the machine gun shot him. So I crawled over to his hole and I picked him up, and he's trying to say something to me. And I was gurgled, and then pretty soon his body went limp on me, and I knew he died. I sat there and I held him. Why? And he died. I so mad, I cried and ran up that hill. where I got the energy to run that hill. I never had before. I could never climb a hill before.
Sakato launched a one-man assault on the Germans, charging headlong into the counterattack, killing 12 of the enemy and personally capturing 4. Inspired by his brave charge, Sakato's platoon followed, taking the hill and capturing 34 prisoners. Injured in a subsequent action, Sakato was hospitalized for 8 months. He heard that he'd been recommended for the Medal of Honor, but was instead awarded the Distinguished Service Cross.
55 years later, I'm at home, retired, enjoying fishing and golfing and everything. And I get this call from the Pentagon. Mr. Kirk Leiters is Pentagon. We want you to come to Washington, D.C., to the White House. What for? We're upgrading your Distinguished Service Cross to the Medal of Honor. So June 20th, 55 years later, I go to Washington. June 20th, 2000, President Clinton gave me this medal. I couldn't believe they're going to give me the Medal of Honor. After all, I was 90 days of actual combat. I was just a recruit. I was just a raw private. I'm an American, and I wanted to show my loyalty to the country. As the kids would learn to respect the flag and do their duty for America, I think this would be a better country altogether.